Now we bring Marcella
Yes.
on stage.
Yeah, let's bring Marcella on stage and there she comes.
Testing my camera. Thank you.
Hey Marcella, how you doing?
Good. Hi on
Good.
it.
Yeah, again,
Hi there.
thanks for submitting to join as a community. We've talked before about how great the Los Angeles UXPA community is and connecting it with other UXPA communities and supporting just the user experience profession all around the country. So again, you're doing an awesome job in LA. I know it's a lot of work. It's very exhausting, but hopefully, we like to, maybe give you a little bit more energy being able to do it on this stage. So
Yeah, it's different not producing events. I don't get to be on this side that much. So
right. So
I'm in tremendous admiration of everybody backstage. I'm just in awe of what you guys do and how well this is put together. So thank you so much.
So very good. So yeah, so why don't we just let you, Marcella, just go ahead and take it away. Anything else, Johannes?
No, just enjoy that you're now on this side for 1 full hour on the global stage. Yeah,
Take it away.
How many people do we have online right now?
I
currently approximately 300,
270. Yeah,
No.
300-ish.
370. It's going up right now.
Awesome. Good. I hope so.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And my talk is going to be a little bit different than Debbie's. I'm going to be telling you a story, something that really, really happened to me. For my whole life, I've been a consultant. I've had my own agencies, plural, and recently let me jump ahead so you can see my little slides. But anyways, here's our agenda today. A little bit about me. When did I start thinking about gender neutral personas, bias, gender neutral personas and methodologies, discoveries, when not to use them, key takeaways, and final thoughts. So there we go. There's that. This is me. I am president of UXPA of Los Angeles. I've been running the chapter for about 10 years, and we have about almost 5,000 members. We have a large board of directors. We have lots of volunteers. So if you are interested in being a volunteer, you can reach out to me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can send you our volunteer form. You can go to our website, uxpla.org. Or find me. I'm the only one with my name in the world. You can also go to our meetup page. So that's another thing. Recently, so I've had my consulting gig for my whole life. And so this is the first time in my whole life I've taken a full-time job. And I'm the senior director of experience at Blizzard Entertainment. So if any of you are gamers, I hope you're having fun with Diablo Immortal, and there's lots more things to come. So I'm having fun. So again, I'm going to tell you guys a story. So how did this gender neutral stuff start? What was the circumstances? And you'll see David Bowie and Tilda Swinton weave throughout my presentation, because I just love that they were such good friends, and they did these movies and a few other things together. They're just brilliant. I love this picture. I kind of smashed these two together because I just love the icon of it all. But let's get back to the story. It was about 10 years ago. I was on my fifth agency. So I've built agencies and then I sell them. And we were going about our business, making great products. 2013, keep that date in mind, because it is important as you get this information that I'm going to tell you in this tale. After a beta version of an iteration for one of our clients was released, customer service reports had a sharp uptick in a lot of complaints and a lot of unhappy customers. And this was kind of unusual. We'd never had anything like this before. We did some moderated user testing. We got a lot of interesting remarks and comments on the images and graphics. Internally, we had been struggling with kind of, in my company, an alpha male culture. It's also known as kind of like toxic masculinity, even though I was the female owner of this company. During that time, about 2000, before I would say 2015, I would say most people that I ran into in UX, it was a male-dominated industry. It is changing as of about 2015 or 16. I teach and I've seen it change. My students are almost all women. But we have been struggling with this alpha male culture with senior design leaders being primarily white males, unfortunately. I am all about hiring women and people of different cultures and ethnicities and gender identity. I love a diverse team. And right now, my team at Blizzard is about 40 people. And apparently, we are the most diverse team in all of Blizzard. And I'm very proud of that. But a lot of these people on the team had come from the graphic design world. Again, this was my company, and I wasn't very happy. So we had been relying on, for this whole time, traditional UX persona development, and we kind of been relying on jobs to be done, actually more so jobs to be done. We were interested in inclusive design. We had already been practicing a lot of accessibility. And when we were looking at jobs to be done, we thought, well, you know what, that could kind of be a way for us to maybe mitigate a lot of the bias inherent and overt that we can, that comes out in us as designers. We are people, we're going to have ideas about things. And just as people, not even designers, we meet people that kind of remind us of other people or people that we have kind of preconceived notions about. We all know this, inherent bias. But there's also overt bias too. Overt bias is kind of colorful comments. You'll see as we come upon them. You'll get the idea. So traditional personas, as we all know, UX personas are gendered, aged, and biased by their very nature. So we were following best practices, but we kind of very soon found out around 2013, 2014, right around the end of 2013, that we were on the wrong path with traditional UX personas. And I'm saying this because this is just what was good for my agency and what was good for my clients. It is not by no means something that I'm preaching that everybody should do. I'm just telling you about my journey. Whoopsie. So we saw this bias and we saw this wrong way path kind of everywhere. And we wanted to remove bias in our designs and products. I'll get to that in a minute about how we discovered this. We thought we were working towards inclusive design, but we were pretty much phoning it in. It's kind of like, how to describe it, like if you're ever a parent and you think your kid is amazing, and then the teacher calls you and says, hey, your kid, Kelly, is beating everybody up in the playground. You're like, not my kid. I know my kid. I've raised my kid. My kid is amazing. And then you get to school and then you see the CC camera footage of your kid beating up people on the playground. And it's kind of shocking. And we kind of found that out. In testing for bias, we continue to find more and more bias in our processes, in our designs, and even the way we talked about our products and the way we talked about our personas. So this was very worrying. So we kind of defined and framed things up at this point. How might we remove inherent and overt bias in our product development process? Well, this kind of went to how our teams were structured, where there was like these alpha teams of like all these guys, and there might be like one woman. I wasn't quite 50-50 men to women at all quite yet in my company, but I was striving towards that. So the next one was how biased is the design process using traditional UX personas and jobs to be done. We found out very biased. How might we get our clients and stakeholders to adopt inclusive design? So that was a little bit of a harder one. And I realized this morning that I did not include the set of slides that I wanted to. So I'll just kind of talk to that. But, and there's a great number that I found through a lot of research that inclusive design, when practiced and really hardy, actually increases user satisfaction and growth. It's a very good thing to adopt in your practice as a designer, as well as, you know, in how you do design. So what are the returns in, oopsie, I'm so sorry. What are the returns in adopting inclusive design for our clients? Because a lot of people can be a little bit resistant towards this because of imagery you might pick out or using gender neutral pronouns. There's some companies that just don't quite feel very comfortable about that. Not then at all. So we decided, to clean things up with a focus on personas, because I've been doing this for a long time. And what I have found time and time again is when things aren't quite working out, I always go back to my personas. I go back and I test the personas. I go back and I make sure that they're updated. I go back and make sure that the data that we have for that particular iteration or whatever we're doing is accurate and relevant to the build of that particular product. So I hired a DEI-focused consultant to come in and talk to us and basically audit everything that we did to look for bias and to actually look at our culture within my design firm. So she audited our process of product development. She analyzed our team structures and our interactions with each other, with our clients, with the work, with our vendors, with everything. She observed and analyzed non-work group dynamics. So meaning if people were in the kitchen or out on the patio, she would go out on the patio and have lunch or just kind of hang around and look to see who was talking to each other and what the groups were, what the cliques were, because there's always an internal culture in every product development company. There is in every company, but I think it's sometimes can be a little bit more so when you're getting into product development. I don't know why, but we scored very poorly on all of the above and so many more things that she pointed out to us. It was that same scenario where you don't think that your kid is a bully and then you realize that your kid is the biggest bully on the playground. It's devastating. You know, you think through everything about your own ethics and morals and what you're teaching your kid in the same way I was thinking through how I've structured my design firm, the people I had hired, and it was kind of a little daunting because I thought I was doing the right thing and I thought I was putting the right people together. But I'm really glad that I hired this company. It was expensive, but it was worth it. So we thought we were being conscientious, considered, and modern in our design approach. We thought we had, we thought we had our it all together. But in reality, it was like paying for the gym and never going. That is how gyms survive, just on human guilt. And I think that at that point, I was kind of going through the motions, and we were all kind of going through the motions and reassuring each other that we were very concerned about diversity and diversity hiring and being welcoming and inclusive. But in reality, we weren't. We were picking the person I've often seen back then who was the funnest to be on the team, which is not a great practice. I do not do that anymore, and I have never done it again. So let's move on. So we made a plan and we implemented it. We made big changes internally. We looked at our product development process, and we really kind of looked out at our all of our different departments were working together or not working together. We looked at siloing. We looked at sharing of information. We looked at inclusion. Our PMs including the design team up front. Are they including engineering? Are they bringing all data to the table? Or are the PMs kind of acting like superstars, which I've seen in some companies and I definitely saw in mine. And I wasn't really happy about that. It was kind of a point of embarrassment. So we had some re-education in big ways and brought in another person to teach us or go over Scrum again. And we kind of focused in on using Jira a little bit more heavily, actually pretty heavily. And we had check-ins, and my head of product sat in on a lot of the departmental meetings, which I thought was really good. And I did too. I thought I needed to see things for myself. We made big changes on team structures and team members. We kind of shuffled people around to have more equity on our products, as far as, not all men or not all women. We kind of wanted to break up these cliques and get people to get to know each other in a work relationship, to kind of break up what was going on. We thought that would be a good idea, and it actually was. a little messy when it came to our work process, but we got over it. It was worth it. It was worth a little bit of messiness at that point. We got HR software with training and testing in DEI and workplace behavior. We were small, we had just a little over 100 people in my company, and we didn't really think that was worth our investment at the time. My justification was I'd rather give, everybody behaves themselves, and I'd rather, have that money to give it for bonuses. But actually we did need it, and it was really good investment that we did. Management, myself and the rest of the managers committed to setting an example and enforcing non-work culture, meaning game time, lunches, Friday afternoons. We'd bring a few cases of, beer and wine and stuff, and we'd just like hang out and play games. And so we really, really looked at that culture, and instead of just kind of letting people do their thing and be obnoxious, we made it more civil, and we made it more inclusive, and we made it more friendly, and we made it more equitable. And at that point, I also rented another suite, and I hired a licensed and bonded daycare worker, and I had offered daycare for my employees too, which I thought kind of really set a new tone in my company, and I'm really glad that I did that. We cleaned up areas of bias in our work, our design systems and component libraries. We really looked at the images that we were choosing, the colors, everything about this, and we saw some pretty big things that we were not happy about. We really looked at color usage, we looked at text usage, and we looked at pronoun usage. We created a company and we required client project style guide. So we had a style guide for our company itself that was focused on DEI and inclusion as well as accessibility. And we also did and went the extra mile and created these for our clients to educate them on accessibility and inclusion, as well as, DEI standards. And it was a learning curve for everybody, but it did work out well. We created criteria when choosing images and symbols, icons, and illustrations, because these can be very, very important. We hired a QA and QC for design with an eye for DEI bias. So this person ended up being a really integral part of our design team, because they were looking for these things, not only that we were adhering to the standards of the particular client or the particular project, but looking for any kind of bias in our design or anything that we could kind of pick out ahead of time before it got out into the public. We focused on the root of UX design, how we create and use personas in our work also. In reworking our personas, we looked at the development and usage. Traditional UX personas have a distinctive process that involves quantitative data, specifying age, gender, and other attributes. We know that. Probably, I hope everybody in this session has created a persona from data. I know that a lot of people that come out of boot camps, you don't really get the chance because their boot camps are kind of very fast going. So I haven't ever met anybody out of a boot camp who's actually really gone through and created a persona from data. I see a lot of people coming out of boot camps who create proto personas, which I will mention in a minute. So would they still be personas without these data points, which is one big question that we had. How were our researched and carefully constructed personas skewing our bias? What was it about what we were doing that was really skewing our bias and really making us not what we were doing at that point allowed all of our preconceived notions, inherent bias, and everything to really coat everything that we were doing unbeknownst to us. Were personas the only contributor to bias in the design process? We found out they were not. It had to do with company culture, style guides, design systems, everything. Over here, I kind of wanted to show you, these are some of the icons from the Google Anonymous, so that when you log on to someone else's or you're shared to someone else's Google Doc, these little icons come up on the top, and there's it's really, I think, a great way that they've done this, because if people are colorblind, they're able to see an image. It's so, just benign and cute that it's charming, even though, sometimes you can see hundreds of people sharing your document. I think it's really cool. And there's one icon I found, which I will definitely give you guys a link to later on. I'm going to put together a reference section for this PowerPoint so I can share it to you. But there's one Google icon that is actually in color. The rest of them are like this, and they're white, and you can put them onto any background. They're available all over the place. So I think they're really cute, and I love them. Okay, let's see. Oopsie. I really went ahead, didn't I? Oh, no. Sorry about that. Where was I? I was there. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I have a squirrely mouse when it comes to using PowerPoint, unfortunately. Let's see. The basis of constructing UX personas. I just want to go over this.
Marcella, you're going to have to share your screen again. Your shared screen disappeared at the end of the slides.
I'm batting 1,000 here.
Yeah, I think PowerPoint was being nice and it just automatically quit sharing.
I know. There we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I'm adding there. Yep, you're back up. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I just kind of wanted to throw something in here for the basics of constructing UX personas for those of you that want to refresh or those of you that have never done it before. So it kind of starts, and this is a very top level, kind of the steps involved that I've gone through. Sometimes I skip some steps because we already have data, but basically it's generative research. Define the goal of the persona, decide what information to include, pull together information from the research, outline the persona, and then design the persona. I think sometimes in boot camps, they just kind of outline the persona and design the persona. That's kind of what I've seen, but hey, it's a start. And if they work for what you're doing, then that's fine. So we took more, oh my gosh, 1 second. I think I have to share again. Oops, no. Oh, I know why. Nope. So sorry. Nope, wrong way. Oh, Keith. Sorry. I'll share again in 1 second. Here we go. Thanks for your patience. So we took more inventory and we realized that we have choices. We needed to look at all the different kinds of personas to figure out where our gender neutral agnostic persona, oopsie. Might emerge. Where would we find that sweet spot? First, we had to take inventory of what existed and were widely used and tested. Persona types found in the wild. I'm sure a lot of you guys know these. A dumbed down version of the most common persona types, they're proto-persona. As I mentioned before, this is what I see a lot of people who come out of boot camps. They are taught how to make proto-personas, which are based on assumptions. And mostly a lot of this data or anecdotal data is coming from internal stakeholders. And when I talk with some people, volunteers who come to UXPLA, and we're talking about personas, and they tell me, well, we just listened to the stakeholder and they told us who their user was, and so we believed them. And I said, yeah, that's kind of not your job. Your job is to listen and then go and find some data and figure out, what the stakeholder's point of view is and what your data says and what's the truth. But they work, in a pinch, especially when you're in school, and they work as a starting point. They work if you're practicing Lean UX. They can be very handy, but not for what we're doing here. So then there's marketing personas. So a marketing persona represents a segment of your audience and usually based mostly on demographics and some other quantitative data like income, gender, and age. how many dogs or cats, how many cars, where you went to school, things like that. I have never really liked using marketing personas, even when I was doing advertising and design, just they didn't seem to work well, but people still use them in marketing. Then there's archetypes. They're representations of groups of users modeled around behavior or tasks. They often include much more quantitative user data, such as common behaviors from Google Analytics. I have used these and they're not bad, but they're kind of bland. Then we have jobs to be done, which I talked about before, that include more information on motivations, triggers to actions, and can be goal-oriented. They often include the job a person is trying to accomplish and how their behaviors are related to that goal. They're very handy, and they're really handy, especially I know for UX researchers. And I like using them, but oftentimes kind of you're very distant from the humanity of who you're building for. So there's a traditional UX persona. They're representations of your users and are a combination of needs, desires, pain, and other data points that kind of come from all the other types. We get data from all over, we bring it together, we aggregate it, and we create our UX personas. So there's those. Now, where was our sweet spot? We have the type of persona, we have that proto persona, and we're like, no, we're data driven. This wouldn't work for the work that we're doing in our firm. The marketing personas, we weren't doing any marketing. That's a big no. There's a little bit of data that would be handy, but in general, nope. There's the archetypes where the quantitative data is great, but the behavior is great, but there's still kind of a lack of humanity. At least that's my point of view on them. And then there's jobs to be done where there's motivations, actions, and goals, which we really need and want, but still kind of distance from the humanity. And remember, we need empathy to be UX designers and product designers. And then there's that traditional UX persona, which has needs, desires, pain points, but traditionally gendered in everything that implies and stirs up. Especially as a designer, we have preconceived notions and we have inherent bias. We have overt bias. We have cultural bias. We have all kinds of things inside of us. We're human beings. So none of these really fit what we were looking for, but all three of them kind of together, we needed all the data points, the motivations, the goals, the needs, desires, and pain points. And we needed humanity. As designers, they use their empathetic superpower to do what they do. I do that when I design. So we tried a few things. So this is where we're into the case study. We're doing all of this. And so now we're going to try a few things. So I just wanted to give you guys some background on this journey. This is conducted over about 2.3 years. So this was a long thing that we did. It wasn't like a 3-month thing and we think that we're going to fix it. We took this very seriously. On average in my firm, the people that participated, it was about 94 people. It was 63% male and 37% female. So it wasn't 50-50, and there was still a strong male kind of alpha-ness in our company when we started this that we soon mitigated. The breakup of who was in my company at the time, we also had probably about 20 freelancers that were working probably at the same time. We had quite a few freelancers. The methods that we used were small discussion groups. We did anonymous staff surveys. We audited past and ongoing work that included text, images, color usage, and composition, as well as data from any testing that we did with those products, past and present. We used unmoderated testing. We did some moderated testing, but mostly we used unmoderated testing, and we did data analysis via Google Analytics. We used other means of data analysis also, but Google was our main pot of information. So this is what we started with. And I'm not showing you the actual real persona that we used for this job because it's kind of, I don't feel comfortable about that. So I just kind of, found this and thought I could modify this and it would represent it good enough. So we started with the traditional UX persona. This is a very simplified one. We named her Steph. She was a vet office tech. And the issues here were a gendered name, a gender-associated colors. We have a lot of pink going on, a lot of light green, pink writing, female-focused name, gender-associated pronouns. So in anything around here, there's a lot of very traditional gender association. There's gender associated background. This is a really prominent color in this whole persona. Oops. I'm going to stop using my mouse and putting it over there and using my arrow keys. The image presents as very female. The image is young, mid 25 to 30, and the image presents as urban. So we did these surveys, we had discussions, and what we wanted to find was that inherent bias. And we wanted the team to write it down, say it out loud with no penalty whatsoever, because this was really important for us to know what was going on in their heads, because this influenced the decisions that they were making in everything that they did. So remember that this is 2013, 2014, okay? This is almost like 8, 9, almost 10 years ago. So here's some of the quotes that I thought were pretty meaty. She's a cool girl who really rarely talks, but always has her shit together. She's always the best dressed. She's super sensitive to other people and is easily offended. I mean, these are the stereotypes and the cliches and the bias that these designers, my designers, had in their head when they looked at this persona that was in our office, printed on tabloid paper, stuck to our whiteboards that they looked at every day. I used to be friends with someone like her. She doesn't use her sexuality, but it gets her what she wants. And they were like telling stories to each other like, oh yeah, man, I dated a girl like her. She drives a car that's always breaking down. So there's something broken about her, apparently. She's very needy and can be codependent. That was a big one. Always getting some guy to do her work. Wow, huge bias. She's gay, but fakes it at work. There was so much more, and I never interrupted them. I wanted them to just get it all out, even though they were laughing and joking about this and everything. I didn't try to formalize this. I didn't try to corral them. I really wanted to hear everything they had to say. And this was kind of shocking, but kind of not shocking. I guess it was shocking because it was in a work environment and we all thought we were on our best behavior, but it was what we weren't saying out loud that was really affecting our work in a very negative way. So it was worse than we imagined. We then audited the work associated with this persona, and it wasn't pretty. Images that played to the designer's bias. So in web products, in mobile products, we looked at images, we looked at color, we looked at the things that they said, and we could kind of see this film over everything that they did. It was astounding. The images that they had chosen in a lot of their work had no diversity of size, color, gender representation. There was very gendered text, gendered pronouns, wasn't even a thought about using ungendered pronouns. Forms, this was a health or a medical product, which identity is very important in the medical field because your doctor needs to know everything about you in that respect. They need to know what kind of medications you're on, what your lifestyle is, because this can really affect the kind of care that you have. And maybe in the last 3 years, I've seen healthcare providers like Kaiser and Blue Shield redo their forms to really take this all into consideration, which I'm very happy to see. So forms with little consideration for identity, color that aligned with designer bias, gender, titles, and honorariums. This was not great. So we started to play around with these personas, and we thought, well, let's see if we can go and find some very gender neutral people, maybe people that identified as queer, or people that identified as transsexual, something that kind of masked a very definitive male or female gender. What if we changed the name of the persona? What if we changed the colors to be more neutral? What happens? So we fixed the picture. We changed the name to something gender neutral, like Finley. Colors more neutral, just wanted to get away from anything like pink or blue or anything in that realm that would signify male or female. Background stayed neutral. We kept the age the same because that fit the work that we were doing. So like 25 to 30. The image still presents as urban, and we changed the storytelling and any of the quotes into gender neutral as much as we could. So this was our fourth attempt. And remember, this is like over almost 2.5 years. This is how the designers describe this persona in the same exercise and the same testing. I don't get her. She's a girl, right? Here comes the PC police. Which restroom would she use? What's her ethnicity? Isn't that important? There's an HR report waiting to happen. I'd like to know her better because I'd never met a trans person. So they were assuming that this picture was of a trans person. I have no idea if it was or wasn't, but this is all the bias. She seems cool, but I imagine she can't totally be herself at work. So there was a little bit of empathy in that one. So a little bit of a spark of hope there. What's with the name? It's throwing me off because, hey, designer, you being thrown off is so important. I think I'm more inspired by our traditional personas. That was an interesting one. She's had a hard life, but has a heart of gold. It was kind of, I remember them kind of just making fun and going back to cliches of like, after school movies that they had seen or the Hallmark Channel or something, or the other one that is kind of geared towards women, kind of rom-coms. She's always gossiping, girl, kind of like remember, these are a lot of white guys, and they were kind of like trying to affect a Black woman's kind of dialogue or dialect. It was embarrassing. We don't need this. We're not stupid. So we had some backlash for this that, some of the designers were unhappy that we were even going through this, or that we were bringing this to them, because the attitude was, it wasn't broke. Why are we fixing it? You're just making more problems, which was hard to hear. So we weren't quite there. After the feedback, we did not use this persona, but we learned from it. We learned images were a direct link with bias and personas. We saw this over and over again when we were testing different images, when we were testing different colors to use in some of these personas. Gender neutral or leaning that way images provoke an equal amount of bias as gendered images. I was dumbstruck by that. I thought that would kind of help in the perception and kind of like remove a little bit of inherent bias by triggering some more empathetic thoughts, but it definitely did not. The reaction focused on a different set of bias and stereotypes, verging on bigotry. I kid you not. Really hard to take. Colors didn't make that much difference in perception. Gender neutral names seemed to create more bias, animosity, and hints of resentment. So that was an interesting one, and we delved more into that. And so we tried again. So this was our 11th version. We removed the picture altogether, so there was no persona picture. In the interim versions, we had tried illustrations that I'm sure everybody's seen them on the web, that are kind of just these, line drawings of people that are more or less gender neutral. We tried animals. We tried illustrations of animals, like I showed you with the Google anonymous animals. We tried backgrounds. So we removed the picture, we kept the name, but changed the color to black. Made him a little bit more prominent. Black was a tiny bit more masculine in a way, I thought, but it didn't seem to affect them. Soft focus blurred dreamy image to evoke emotion, but not define it. So we wanted them to feel something, but we wanted to keep away from anything that would provoke bias. We kept the age the same, so we kept these colors vibrant, and we kept the quotes more in line with somebody who would be in that age group. And we conveyed the age group through storytelling instead of putting those data points on here. We kept other colors and data points the same. We changed everything to gender neutral pronouns. So designer's inner dialogue and bias. So this isn't male or female, right? Is it like androgynous, asexual? I don't know what to think. In a good way, though, it's more about feeling because I'm not focusing on looks. The storytelling means more. That was a good one. That was a really good one. Then we got, I'm focusing on the data points more in absence of a picture. Getting better. It's okay. I'm more of a visual person, so I've got to get used to this. Well, at least they were open to getting used to it. They weren't bringing up their cliches or their bigotry or anything at this junction. It's kind of like Magritte's Son of Man. If you guys are familiar with any of Magritte's work, you probably know the image. It's a picture of a guy with a suit, with a bowler hat, and in front of his face is a green apple. So this person described this as, I can't quite see the face, but I can see the composition, I can feel it. I want more data in story, if no image. That one was really good. I can't get a picture in my head of who this is, but I get them. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I took it as a good sign. And there was other good things that were coming out of this one. So we were getting really close. Thought we were going, and we were right. We were going in the right direction at this point. Remember, this is like 2.5 years later after we started this whole journey. What we learned in other versions, we tried, as I said before, cartoon illustrations of people, animals, landscapes, abstract images like bouquet, inanimate objects, plants, flowers, more narrative and no image at all, data points and little to no narrative. We tried every combination of things in the interim versions that we did. Removing the image and replacing with colorful, undefined backgrounds for our company, my company, and the people that work there went a long way in removing inherent bias. That was just like wonderful. The team development discussions centered around data points more than ever, which fostered their own storytelling and scenarios to solve pain points. This was good. So I walked in on conversations where they're actually talking about this persona. They're talking about the data points. They're bringing pain points up. I never walked into a really focused conversation like that, like an ongoing conversation in a very long time. So this was really great. Gender neutral names, variations on the background image worked because of no object or human association. This was a big one. When we had an image up there of someone we thought was gender neutral, associating a gender neutral name with that particular photograph didn't really work. It created more stress. It created more questions. It created more fear because of this alpha male kind of culture that I was actively breaking up and kind of retraining in a lot of ways too. So without the image, the gender neutral name worked much better because there was nothing behind it. There was nothing that they needed to wonder, is this a male or a female? Is this transgender? Is this gay? Is it anything like that? Nothing at all. And so now that gender neutral name worked. In some persona work because of the needs of the product, we did add in data points such as age range, education, income, marital status, but did not specify the gender of the spouse. So this was working for us at this point. And our designs became a lot better and a lot more conscientious about what was going on in inclusion design, methods of inclusion design, as well as our adoption of accessibility. So the discoveries that we made, we paid more attention to icon usage, leaning towards developing new gender neutral symbols. So when you go looking around for sets of icons, we couldn't quite find what we wanted. We were about 3 years into this by now. And so we started to create a whole set of gender neutral icons that were commonly used in a lot of digital design, and they started to work really well. It was actually quite good. Gender neutral is a spectrum and not an opposite pursuit. One size does not fit all. I cannot emphasize this enough. With all the testing that we did and all the experimentation and all of the retrospectives and the auditing, going along in this journey, what we kept finding over and over again is there was no one method. But one thing we did find that was a common thread was a check-in, was really to, after the persona was being put together, not only to test it against the work and the pain points and everything in that respect, but to test it with our culture and our team. That became very, very important. We push the unconventional, but focus on the story. For our team and for what we needed and how we developed these, the story became a lot more important than anything. And I heard them as we went on in our work, kind of add to it and want to, and not in a critical way, and not in a humorous way, or not in a taunting way, but like really talking about things. I also think that the world was changing too from 2012, 2013, 2014. We're probably around 2016 by this time, 2017, and the world was changing. And gender inclusion and DEI were in the common consciousness far more than when we started this journey, which I think really made a big difference. Furthering the journey, we designed an accessible presentation template. So every time we presented our work, we took a lot of pains in developing an accessible, gender-inclusive presentation template. So we wanted to walk the walk, and we definitely did, and we talked about it at all of our client meetings and all of our pitch sessions too. So that really helped to reinforce that messaging and what my firm was all about. So when not to use agnostic or gender-neutral personas? I get asked this all the time, and people like bring scenarios up to me and they go, well, would you use it if you're designing male clothes? So let's take a look. Some scenarios not to use agnostic personas. Avoiding demographic information such as age and gender is not always the best choice in a project. As I've said before, it's not a one-size-fits-all in any way whatsoever. If your product is for 5-year-olds, or if it's an all-female product, then agnostic personas will do more harm than good. Very, very true. The next slide, I will give you some good examples. According to a study conducted by the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, women notice and use different aspects of a UI than men. We kind of know that. That's kind of been pretty steady throughout all of this digital world, and even pre-digital world. Women, for instance, are more prone to notice people and faces, whereas men are more drawn to dynamic color choices. Yes, but not necessarily so inside design teams that we have found, at least not our design team. Scenarios. Use age-agnostic personas, for example, if the youngest users are in their late teens and the oldest users are in their mid-30s, then the user age gap is larger than 15 years. That is a good scenario. Use gender-agnostic personas if demographics are 50% men and 50% women. One of the most pleasant surprises that I got upon coming onto Blizzard is that the game personas that are being used by all of our games are gender neutral. I was kind of blown away by that, because I thought with the kind of games in Blizzard like World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, I had this preconceived notion, this bias, that there would be more male gamers than there are female gamers. But I just got the data last week because I still didn't believe it. And so from the research department, I did get the data, and it is almost spot on. It is very balanced in between kind of male and female gamers in our company. And that was really cool to see, and really wonderful to look at the data and look at how our personas were done. The new said and revised, I think at the end of last year. So they're relatively new and they're very relevant. Use location agnostic persona if there are more than 5 countries or settings, city, urban, outlands, etc. in location demographics. Focus channels. Let's say you're trying to get more female users. You wouldn't really use an agnostic persona. You would definitely use a gendered persona. So some industries and products that may not be suitable for agnostic personas, but I put some caveats in here, like a condom. You would think that you would probably make a gendered persona if you were working at a condom company, but a lot of women, probably almost 50% of women also buy condoms. So they're not relying on their partner to always have a condom ready to go, and an unexpired condom at that. Bras may be predominantly worn by women, but there are also men bras, and there are bras for people that are going through transition. There are all kinds of different kinds of bras. Men get breast cancer too, not as much as women do, but they do, and so there are special bras for that. You may be a single parent raising a young girl, so you're going to probably take her bra shopping. There are different scenarios on that, so that's something to really think about. So then we have the male protector. These protect male parts from sports injuries, but women often purchase them for children and partners. I know that when my brother was playing baseball, he didn't want to go and deal with this, so he felt too embarrassed. So my mom was always going in and making sure that he was well protected, and that included this piece of equipment. So these are small scenarios where you may want to think about it, and you may make assumptions about it, but you got to think about really who's really using these products. Is it really completely one gender or another? Is it agnostic? And what are you, when you're in your iteration, what are your goals there? That will help you determine whether or not you're going to make an agnostic persona. So the takeaways from today, oh my gosh, 11:51. Take inventory of inherent and overt bias in your practice and product design. Be an advocate. Be an advocate for inclusion in any way you can. If not us, who will? Who will talk and stand up? And I'm a big advocate for DEI and inclusion and accessibility in all things that I do. Showcase your research to provide structure and substance. Figure out your methodologies. Figure out if agnostic personas will work. Figure out if a gender neutral design system will work. But really do your research on this and figure out your parameters here, and if it's appropriate to use a gender agnostic persona, and what is right for you, your company, your culture, your team, or the product and the client. Be unconventional and make sure you are telling a story. So we have found over the years that storytelling has become more and more important to persona development. And not all projects or iterations are suitable for agnostic personas, as I had gone over before with the condom, the bra, and the protector. So here's two of my favorite icons again, David Bowie and Tilda Swinton, constantly playing with gender when David Bowie was alive. I thought it was just so wonderful what they did. It's so playful. So the final thoughts: be an advocate for your inclusion, for any kind of inclusion that you can. Stand up and ask for it, and design it and research it and use it whenever you can. Experiment and keep asking questions, embrace diversity, and get creative and know your methodologies. That is it. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you learned something. I thank you for all of my gaffes and blunders today with my mouse and getting my screen shared. This was just such a wonderful opportunity, and I hope this was something that you enjoyed. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Marcella. That was great.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Johannes. Who is on your head? Is that, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That's a cat on the head. We actually didn't find out the name yet, but we asked this a few times to our attendees to post name suggestions for this cat on my head. Oh, we had Katniss Everdeen already.
Everdeen, is that one of them? Is that the most popular one?
I don't know, the Katniss.
The Katniss. The Katniss is good. Isn't there a new Hunger Games coming out soon or something like that? I've been so busy, I have no idea.
So yeah, I think we could cover a couple of quick questions, but
yeah,
we'll move them. Maybe have to transfer some of them over to the Q&A. For me, again, I think you reinforced. For me, it's really more about the story, right? If people get the story, the characters are less important. And I know personas sometimes make the characters the star of it. Again, like for big budget movies, it's about Katniss. That's also an interesting situation. But I think for our design work, we need to understand the story more than get obsessed over a single character.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the movies, to immerse yourself in their world more so than looking at data points. And that's what we really found became more important with using agnostic personas, is to really immerse yourself in that world more through storytelling than just looking at those data points. When we had used traditional personas, what we also found by observation, when people are looking at the picture, they were looking at the data points, and they were kind of skipping reading the story for some reason.
Right.
So this really kind of shifted the focus quite a bit, and our designs and our designs were better, our clients were happier. It was really quite a wonderful shift, and we attracted more women too to my company. So we hired more women too. So that was awesome.
Okay, yeah, we had one very specific question. Did you consider using phrases or roles like the seasoned salt or the change agent, right, instead of people's names?
We did. And I think we tried that, and at the time of the development of the agency, the people, that didn't seem to go over well for some reason. I thought it was great, but they did not accept that, and I was the boss. I was not not designing every day, and I don't go about leading that way. It's got to be design driven, and every voice is important as far as I'm concerned. And right at that moment, their voices were very important because they were going through all these changes. That's what I could do, was push us to go through these changes and push us to be more aware and understand who we are as human beings and how us as humans affect our designs all the time. So yeah, we did try that. That's actually a good thing that you brought up. So thank you. I should put that in my presentation.